Today, my long-term review of the Tacx Neo Smart Trainer. My Tacx Neo Smart Trainer was purchased back in May 2016. I put a user review up on the GPLama blog in early June 2016, but that was a few weeks before I started uploading regularly to YouTube, so I haven't actually covered the unit itself. So today, probably the longest tested Llama Lab review you'll ever get here, over 2 years of usage. Let's go through all the stats and specs of this unit. First up, a new format for this one, everything you need to know about this trainer in 60 seconds. The Tacx Neo is a direct drive smart trainer, so it's a rear wheel off trainer. Compatibility is most bikes. In 2017, the unit was redesigned to accommodate more bike fit. It is compatible with a quick release axle, and with an adapter, it supports most Thru Axle bikes. It is Shimano and SRAM compatible with cassettes. Campagnolo is an additional purchase for compatibility with that. You will need to supply your own cassette. Connection protocols, ANT plus FEC and Bluetooth Smart, so compatible with everything. FTMS on Bluetooth is coming soon. Power accuracy down to 1% or 99%, however you say that, but killer power accuracy. No calibration process required. Excellent. Maximum grade simulation is 25%. Maximum wattage, 2200 watts at 40 kilometers an hour. Flywheel speed. Flywheel size and weight, bit of a tricky one because it's a virtual flywheel on this unit, so variable up to 125 kilos. Unit weight, 22 kilos. It's pretty heavy, but the box it comes in is quite small to move around. The noise level is quiet and can be used with or without mains power. How did I go? 60 seconds and we're done. Okay, now onto the bonus round of everything else you need to know about this unit. Transmits power, cadence, and speed data, so no need for an extra cadence sensor. Has road surface simulation, so if you're riding over virtual cobbles or a virtual bridge or ice, it can simulate that through the pedal stroke. That's pretty cool. Interesting modes such as isotonic and isokinetic modes as well, so it has some extra functionality there we don't typically see in our simulation apps. Downhill drive simulation, if you're riding down a negative grade and have the mains power plugged in, the unit will actually tick over that flywheel. Again, something else is pretty cool. Comes with a neat front wheel riser block in the box itself. The unit rear axle height is a little bit taller than a standard road wheel, so you need one of those to actually jack the bike up a little bit on the front, and has some flex in the unit as well. It's not a stationary trainer like everything else. It has a little bit of sway side to side. So that's A to Z of the specifications of the unit and what it does. Over to pricing, we have £11.99, €12.99, $13.69 US dollars, and $18.99 Aussie dollars. I have seen it discounted here in Australia for a little bit cheaper than that, so keep an eye out for some special deals. Now onto my experience with the Tacx Neo Smart over the last 2 years, starting off with my blog post over here on the GPLama blog. The quick start guide I've typed out here lists unboxing and setting up was straightforward and simple. Yes, it is. It simply comes out of the pretty small box. Put the cassette on and away you go. The cassette these days is SRAM Shimano compatible. If you need Campag, you need to buy the extra free hub for that. But most people are in the Shimano camp these days, so no problems at all. The unit is heavy, 22 kilos as mentioned. But if you're not moving it around, it's not too bad at all. Some people mention the plastic shell looks cheap, but no, it looks like Star Wars to me, or a TIE fighter or something like that. Owning a Neo here means you're inducted to the Flat Earth Society. Yes, there's no feet adjustability on the Neo out of the box. You can do some creative things with the feet, but most of the time it's built for flat ground. Again, not a big problem for most of us inside here in a pain cave. The Neo itself has some glowing lights underneath to indicate how hard you're actually working. That's not too bad. Looking down when you're in pain, it's always red. The unit can be used with or without power, which is kind of cool. If you want to transport this thing around and use it for a warm-up, just be careful with the electronics and moisture and rain. Not really built for that, but it can be used. The only thing you miss without power is the downhill freewheel, so not too much missed at all. You'll still get Bluetooth and ANT plus data coming from the unit and full simulation, so hills, erg mode and things like that in a car park, if that's where you want to train. The Neo itself originally had a bit of a wider shell on it. You can see here, here's a template we used to cut out to see if our bikes were compatible. The newer ones are a little bit thinner, so more bike compatibility, but just watch that. If you're not quite sure if your bike will fit on a Neo, definitely visit a local bike store, mount your bike before you make the purchase. People have mentioned the Neo leans a little bit more to the right than to the left, and yes, this is the case just a little bit. The Neo has a little bit of play side to side, and here's why that actually occurs. The center line of your bike itself is a little bit offset to the right. So if you're just riding along and you wiggle one to the other, you'll get a little bit more movement to the right than to the left. and that explains it. Not a big one, but something to be aware of. Sound-wise, as mentioned, it is a quiet unit, so you'll hear mostly your drivetrain, or if you're spinning up really, really fast, a little bit of a whistle hum to the unit. Let's have a listen to that now.
Okay, you're doing 100 watts now?
Yep.
Right, give me 200. Call it when you get it.
Yep. Just give it a sec. It's 200.
250. Alright, that's too easy. Give me 300. Alright, give me 350. Come on. 400. Alright, come on, 450. Alright, crank out the 500 now, thanks. Come on, 550. 600. 650. 700. 750.
The height of the unit itself for the rear axle is about an inch or so higher than a standard road wheel, so this is why they supply a front wheel block with that. Or you can just set it to a certain height that you want with phone books. That always works for me. The power accuracy of the Tacx Neo, well, it's always been spot on for me. Spot on with the PowerTap P1s, the Favero Aciomas, and a static weight calibrated and tested Quark. So it's always my go-to unit for the Lama lab tests with power meters indoors. The power reporting response time seems pretty sharp, so when you're kicking into a sprint, it reports that sprint, and when you're going easy and backing it off, it drops down as you'd expect, in line with the other power meters that I'm using at the time. Erg mode resistance changes seems to be pretty snappy. Also simulation as well with hills, depending on what software you're using, but there's no noticeable lag or effect, only what's being put in there by the software. The ride feel, or the road feel, pedaling the unit itself feels a little different to something with a big heavy flywheel. You really need to put two side by side and do two big workouts on both to know the difference. The Neo itself feels a little heavier, feels a little bit more laboured over the pedal stroke, especially when you're at FTP in erg mode. You really have to push that thing over. It's a bit different, but given the software that you're using, it can change that experience. There's a lot of potential unlocked here with AMP Plus FEC, Bluetooth FTMS, and the settings of the software. But it's not too bad. It's still my go-to trainer if you need to jump onto an erg mode and get those power numbers pushed out. The road surface simulation, well, this is something unique from the Tacx Neo, given the design of the unit. If you're going over cobbles, you'll feel those cobbles come through. Well, it comes through the chain, not through the whole bike, so you've got to be pedaling to feel that. Same with bridges, with the slats in the bridges, and ice, it can slip out. Again, same with the isokinetic and isotonic modes. I have videos on all these, I'll link below to those, but it's something quite unique and a little bit more immersive. As for training, it's just immersive, let's just call it that. The downhill drive simulation of the Tacx Neo for me is a little bit of a gimmick because it doesn't actually propel you forward in any of our virtual games or virtual environments. They're all based on putting out the power. So if you just stop pedaling downhill, it's a bit of a novelty. The thing will just like whir away. You can hear the freewheel flying downhill. It's interesting to have. Doesn't change the gameplay whatsoever for your rides on Zwift. That green jersey smell on the Tacx Neo, something quite interesting that if you're putting out 900 to 1000 watts for say 10 seconds in those green jersey sprints, you may smell something a little funny coming from the Tacx Neo. It smells a bit digital, but after having that for around 2 years or so, not a problem whatsoever, just something to be aware of. It's the inside heating up a little bit and just burning off a few things. Again, hasn't broken my Tacx Neo, and I've done it maybe hundreds and hundreds of times, but just something to be aware of. If you're smelling something strange after a sprint, you've gone pretty hard. Now onto the virtual tyre slip on the Tacx Neo. This is something I discovered early on. I raised many support tickets about this, trying to get my head around what was going on, why this was occurring. There was new firmware updates put out to stop it from occurring. It's still there. What happens is if you're in a simulated gradient, I find probably 6%, 8%, 12% on Zwift, and you're in a low gear, say the 34 or 36 up the front, and you accelerate, the resistance will just slip out. It feels like there's sort of nothing at the bottom of the pedal stroke. It feels mushy, very slippy on the bottom. It's not really that great happening. It doesn't really simulate outdoors, but it happens. I'm not sure why. My theory is that the unit itself just can't adjust to the instant change in resistance it needs to apply when you're putting huge amounts of torque into the virtual flywheel. So I think that's just what's happening. Day-to-day usage, it just doesn't occur. So riding along Watopia Flat, riding say the hump day ride with a big bunch ride, erg mode doesn't happen. It just seems to be up a hill if you do an acceleration, or if you're pushing super hard in a super high torque gear, it'll just slip out on the pedal strokes. And yes, it still happens to this day on Zwift. Whether it's a Zwift thing, whether it's a Tacx thing, whether it's a setting they can send within the trainer, I suspect there's a little bit more to unlock within the trainer, so I'm still keeping a close eye on this one. We'll see how it goes. Not a showstopper, but it does exist. In the 2 years that I have had the Tacx Neo, it hasn't all been smooth sailing. With all these, I have video links below of how I've solved all these. First up, the clicking and grinding freewheel noise. After transporting the unit, I had that dreaded noise of the freewheel. Tacx sent me the extraction tool. I took the plate or the flywheel, it's not really a flywheel, the flywheel off, cleaned everything, put it back on. It's been happy days ever since. So if you do encounter that grinding noise, it's not terminal, it can be fixed. With the movement of the unit, it did develop a little bit of a creak side to side after a few years. Depending on the environment that you're using, if it's very dry, I guess the creaks may come in a little earlier. If it's a humid environment, you may never hear the creaks. I addressed that with a bit of wax-based lubricant the other day. Again, video below to how I fixed that. Maintenance of the Tacx Neo is quite simple. I clean the cassettes, I make sure the unit is nice and clean, and also grease the axle probably once every 12 months. Again, video below of how to do that on your unit. Alrighty, and wrapping this one up for today, showing you guys my experience with the Tacx Neo Smart Trainer, a unit that's 3 years old and one I've had for almost 2 years. That's pretty impressive that it's still at the top of the tree, or equivalent top of the tree with a few others when it comes to power accuracy, ride feel, features, compatibility, and a go-to trainer that a lot of people will recommend to their friends if they want to have a good experience indoors. Not bad Tacx, not bad at all, and it's still here in the Llama Lab. Alright, thanks for watching. As always, if you can test ride yourself, highly recommended. Make sure your bike fits on this unit, make sure it's all compatible with what you want, and enjoy the ride. Alrighty, thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.